How are you guys doing today, ladies and gentlemen? I have a special guest with me today, and let's talk about it. All right. So,
Hello there.
this is my special guest, and can you tell the people your name, please?
My name is Nate. I like to be called Three. But hello, everyone. Happy to be here. Uh, yeah.
And just tell me a little bit about yourself because, we were talking prior to this, and I really found you to be interesting and your story interesting, and I want to expound on that on here. So, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Currently, I'm an entrepreneur. I started a cannabis distribution company, and I cook edibles. Um, it started just with my love of cooking, and I moved to Vegas for a while, so I got to see how great the industry is out there, and it was definitely something I was interested in. Also gives me the opportunity to mix business and pleasure, and really be happy within what I'm doing, not just doing it for money. Come from Jamaica, Queens, so I'm raised
All right.
in the hood,
Okay.
and you just with lessons that you learn in the hood, you try to take them and use them. But like right now, I'm at a point where I want to make a difference. I don't want to just be another person that made it from the hood. I want to go down in history.
Okay. Let's expound on that. So, what wanted you to go into the cannabis business? Like, why did you decide to do
Well, like growing up, everybody around me, we all smoke weed. It was like, the adults smoke weed, but they didn't let the kids smoke with them. We got in trouble for smoking weed, but everybody smoked weed. It was just like the one thing that was like a taboo. And then I went to Vegas, and it's a whole different industry. It's not a taboo. It's something that's right there in front of you, and you realize like it's a big money making industry. And I got in college. I started at Sullivan University, and I started studying cannabis business. And a lot of people made fun of me. Like they were like, "You're going to school for college? It makes no sense." And within that studies, like just getting to the root of like the war on drugs, where that stimulated from and where it comes from, and I wasn't okay with it. Like it's to me, it came about control, and I've always been a person that had like a problem with authority. I don't like being locked down. I don't like bondage. I like free will, and I feel like that's something that the gods instilled since the beginning of time. With the story of Adam and Eve, God put Adam and Eve in the garden. He gave them the choice. And I feel like as we start developing as a society, they kept on taking away our free will. And that's something I learned throughout the industry. But I started learning like cannabis is medication. It's it's also like a relief for some people. It's a lot of things, but it isn't any of the negative things that they've been like portraying it to be, at least from the studies that I've done. And it like made me really start studying even deeper into the history, which led me to my history. So it just became like everything surrounding this is deeper than what I see. It's not just they criminalized weed. It became why they criminalized it and who were they trying to attack, and why were these people such a like problem for them? Why they wanted to attack them? Like why were they a threat?
Okay. So,
Like so like studying cannabis. Originally, the first American flag is made out of hemp. Um, World War II, World War I was funded from hemp. There was a point in America where America forced you to grow hemp. It was like if you had a farm, you had to grow hemp. So to go from being a nation that supported this industry 100% to being a nation where you got people who got sentenced life in prison, like the gentleman that runs 40 ton, he got sentenced life in prison. So to go from being like, I'm like, what's the biggest change? Then I started studying that, and you get into President Nixon, and you're like, oh, he had the war in Vietnam, and he wanted us to shut up. We were the weed smokers, so what do? You throw those people in jail, and start like really studying patterns, and it was like that. It seemed to be a pattern in America. When they want to control you, they criminalize the things that are surrounded around you, because they can't come directly at the person. They can't just say we hate black people. They can't just say we hate white people. Can't just say we hate Asians or whatever race that they're or type of people they're trying to stop. They can't just say that we hate them. So they attack the things around them. So they started criminalizing cannabis when it was like at that point they knew they were already using their medications. There was a point where there was medication. Every medication in the United States was like there was some type of cannabis in it. It's been known since the beginning of time. There's been medical like resources for it, but it's still listed as a Statute 1 drug. Statute 1 drug says that it has no medical uses, yet cocaine is listed as a Statute 2 drug. So it's like, okay, who is this affecting the most? Who went to the jail the most about this? And I start looking at it, and it's people with melanin in their skin. It's minorities that's mostly affected by this. And it's like, okay, why they wanna shut us up so much? And then you look at the things that we stood for and the things that we fought and the things surrounding around that. You had Black Panthers. You had a lot of protests going against the Vietnam War. You had a lot of things going on that weren't okay with these people. So they said, let's throw them in jail. And it's a similar thing like they did with slavery when they created the jail system. They ended slavery. They said, we can't control these people. So if you look like you don't got a job, let's create a jail system and put those people in jail. And it's a habit that's had continued in America since the beginning of time, and is now, like, thank God they're legalizing it on the market. But it also made me start watching out for the weed that they are putting on the market, because it's like, you found a way, in my head, you found a way to control it.
So is it different? So cannabis, is it different from marijuana?
So I don't like using the term marijuana too much, because the term marijuana technically is a racist slur, in my view. The term marijuana stimulates from marijuana, which was what the Mexicans called it after the Great Depression. And Americans use that as the reason why they were losing the Great Depression. Like, oh, that was the drug that made them strong and stuff, because we're a strong nation, you know, they can't just accept the loss. So they were like, oh, this is what's making us lose this war. This is what's making us have so many casualties. So they criminalized and demonized the drug, but that was the name that was attached to it. If you look in like any historical documents before, I believe 1937, that term is not even used. They called it hemp, and it was all the same thing. But when they wanted to attach it to a negative standpoint, they attached a different translation of the word to it, so that now when people think about it, they think Mexican, and now they think bad.
So is it
like by scientific studies now is CBD, because it doesn't have the THC component, which is what they basically criminalized. Whereas cannabis now, what they call, is the content of it that has the THC in it. But they're all the same plant. It's just, you know, with them switching where it's grown and moving it from its original soil, the plant changes. It's alive. They changing the DNA of it. And as far as what they were growing years ago versus now, I don't even, like, I hear a lot of older people say this stuff that we smoking nowadays ain't the same thing. We have all these different strands. You have hybrids now. You have sativas, indicas. But back in the days, you just go get a dime bag of some greens and you're good to go. Now, they've started mixed breeding plants. They've started testing out the potency. They've tried to, like, control the potency. So now we do have plants that have way higher THC levels than they would have even been able to naturally grow before.
Explain THC. What is THC?
So THC is the chemical in cannabis that allows you to get high. Believe it or not, there's a lot of plants on earth that has THC in it, but that cannabis itself has the most, like, controlled cannabis in one component. So of course you feel the effects, but black pepper have THC in it. A lot of people don't know there's a lot of other plants that have THC in it. It's just that no one eats black pepper whole, so you'll never, like, actually get high off of black pepper. But if we're criminalizing THC, then there's a lot of other items that we need to take off the market.
I'm thinking that THC is higher in cannabis than it is in any other product that you're mentioning, like pepper, because we don't get high off of pepper. No. So let's take it back. When you were in school, college, right? What exactly were you learning about cannabis?
So, of course, we go into the business aspect of it. You know, just finding out about the taxes and like how to file taxes, knowing that technically cannabis is still federally illegal,
Mm-hmm.
but state by state it is legal. So depending on what state you go to, I could be here and go to another state and it's illegal, learning those things. But I think the most interesting thing in school was just studying substance abuse disorder,
Mm-hmm.
because that really got deep into got me deep thinking, because studying substance abuse disorder was just like, yeah, you can sell cannabis to people, but there's people who do have addictive personalities that, yes, this may be a good thing to put on the market, but for some, there's always a yin and yang to everything.
Mm-hmm.
It will have a negative reaction on some. So learning how to see these and notice habits so that you won't have anyone now become reliant on this particular substance. And with substance abuse disorder, that just blew me away, because we started getting deep into what causes substance abuse disorders, how to treat them, how to deal with people with substance abuse disorder, where it stimulates from. And in those studies, I started, my professor, what he had us do, he said, if you think giving up a substance abuse disorder is so easy, think about a bad or just a habit that you have that you do every day, whether you think it's bad or not,
Mm-hmm.
and give it up for the rest of the semester. And my thing is shopping. So, oh man, I was messed up off of it. He was like, try the first week, cut back on the shopping. By the second week, you shouldn't be shopping. And I thought it was easy, and we look at it as a we treated people with substance abuse disorders as bad, and you realize we all have them. Our substance is just different. I couldn't stop shopping, and I felt bad. I'm reading the other reviews and the other discussions, and I'm making up excuses of why I needed to buy something that I didn't really need to buy. And then my professor was like, okay, get to the root of that. Why do you buy stuff so much? And then I'm like, okay, I remember growing up not being able to have everything I wanted. So when I got to the point where I was making enough money where I could have everything I wanted, I would just buy it whether I needed it or not. And then it became something that brought me joy. And you realize the same chemical that our brain creates when you get on that substance to make you happy is the same chemical that my brain creates when I go out and go shopping and I buy myself something nice, and now I'm happy about it. And realizing the high is that chemical that it creates in your body is not about what they're using. And stop separating yourself. You're not higher than them. We're all the same. We just have different, things that get our gears going.
I have another episode that I'm going to do, and it is about my addiction. So I'm glad you touched on that, because honestly, it's not just drugs, like you mentioned. And I kind of got that, feeling from talking to my grandmother. We were talking about a family member using drugs and learning that, okay, he has an addiction, but so do I. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And also, now that you mentioned your past, growing up and stuff like that, can you dive in a little bit into that? Because honestly, you know what I wanted to say first? Were you learning about cannabis in college?
We were learning, really, they don't give you in-depth about the genetic breakdown of a plant, because it's still an untouched industry. And I'm guessing the major I took up was Cannibusiness, so we were studying more on the business, how to run a business. There's special things you can do with advertisement. I can't just go throw a commercial on the TV. There's restrictions against that. I guess adult TV. Remember when we were younger, you didn't see those commercials come on TV until it was definitely time for the kids to go to sleep. It's basically the same rules now. So how to have a successful business without getting yourself tickets and restrictions and stuff. That's what is more. They didn't actually break down the cannabis plant itself. I started studying that because I wanted to get more in depth. There's a lot of other components to cannabis than THC. Whoopi Goldberg has a brand out that's specifically for women who are on their menstrual. And it's okay, so there's chemicals in THC that if these levels are higher, or these terpenes are higher, then it will help with your body. Or if CBD is higher in this plant, then it can help with certain type of pains. For a while, I was making my mom a CBD and aloe rub, and she has arthritis. So like just the CBD, she doesn't want to be high, but she wants the CBD as the healing component, so she would use it. And it's like there's a lot of different.
Is it addictive?
I would say it all depends on the person, because I do remember there was a point, like I've been smoking for well over 10 years. There was a point where if I didn't smoke today, I was pissed. Like I had an attitude, I couldn't focus, and I would simply blame it on the fact that I didn't get to smoke. But I think that comes with not actually understanding yourself and understanding your feelings, because it wasn't that I couldn't smoke. It was that something else was going on around it, and smoking was my crutch to be able to help me escape. But the issue wasn't really me not being able to smoke. So it's like as I became more in tune with myself, it's like, okay, I didn't smoke today. Like this morning, I had a lot going on, but I didn't smoke this morning. But I'm able to now bring myself back where smoking is not my only stress reliever.
You know how we kind of like coincide.
So, yeah, I grew up in Jamaica, Queens in the 90s, born 91. I'm not going to say every kid, but I grew up in Jamaica, Queens with a crack-addicted mother. And, you know, I feel like it wasn't that uncommon at that time. A lot of people had parents who suffered from drug addictions or drug diseases. And at that time, you know, my mom couldn't afford everything, but she was the best parent she could have been. She did the best she could. My mom grew up in a house full of boys. Her mom passed away when she was 2. So the way she learned love was different. And, you know, once she got off of drugs, she got into the church, and they like, these were the people that nurtured us. And the thing with addiction is that because my mom didn't fully understand it, it went from being drugs being her addiction to church. And everything in our lives surrounded around church. We stopped trick-or-treating and stuff like that growing up. We weren't allowed to participate in certain holidays growing up. But for me, it became a little bit more complicated as I got older and I came out as a lesbian. Because at one point I was a praise dancer in the church, and I was a youth pastor, and I enjoy reading the Bible, and I enjoy reading just religious books. And that was a place where I called home, and then I came out and I got rejected, and I was treated like an outcast, and all of those things that made me so happy was taken away from me because I wasn't living a lifestyle that they wanted me to, and it caused a major rebellion to the point where I was like running away from home. I was like, they don't love me, I don't love them neither. Like, kind of like you turn your back on me, I turn my back on you. And it caused a lot of problems. I did a lot of time in juvenile jail, and just would run the streets. And it was like always weird to me because I always did great in school. Like I went to IS8, I went to Richmond Hill High School, and I always did great in school. So the teachers never understood. I was always in the top classes and always had the top grades. It just was always a problem at home. And it got to the point where I was 15 years old, and I got into like a huge fight with my older sister and my mom the day after Christmas, because I ran away and I came home the day after Christmas, and they were just fed up and got into a fight, and I got arrested. And just not to come home, I pled guilty to the charge because they were just like, you know, my mom, she's a good woman and she means well, so, you know, and she's a Christian. We get in the courts and she is who she is and I am who I am. So they couldn't connect where the problem actually was, because it's like we have two people who are very smart and very understanding, but they don't understand. Like, you know, these people don't live our lifestyles. They've never walked a day in our shoes. They don't know what it is to be black or a black woman, let alone raised in this world. A lot of these judges and these lawyers that run these court systems don't live in our neighborhoods, don't speak to the kids every day, don't know what's going on. So it became a situation where it was like, we're gonna send you back home. And I'm like, I'm not going. So I pled guilty and I went in and just to stay in. And I met a lot of people, and through that time I started learning like my triggers, my cues. I got into yoga. But me and my mom developed a relationship where we came to a better understanding. We're like, I'm not comfortable wearing skirts, and I'm not comfortable dressing like this in certain things. And she agreed to a lot of most of them when I was locked up, and when I came home, things were a bit different. And I ended up going into foster care because my mom told me, she's like, the day you turn 18, I'm kicking you out. You know, I was like, maybe about 4 months before my 18th birthday, I was like, yeah, it's coming. I'm gonna be homeless, and I knew it. So I was just like, all right. I had a friend. I called her, and I'm like, I need to bring my suitcase to your house, and she's like, come through. And the next day, I went to the ACS building, and for the first time in my life, my mom actually told him I don't want her because she had I feel like she had a control thing at one point where even when we would have problems at home, she would get in the courts and make it seem like it was no issues. So as long as you're the court's concern is as long as you have food in the refrigerator and you don't have no visual bruises on your body, ain't no abuse going on. At least that's how it was back in the day. So they would continuously send me home, and my mom finally said at that point, I don't want to. And for a long time, it hurt me to hear my mom say, yo, she don't want me. But over the years, I was like, that's the best thing my mom did for me. Actually admit that she wasn't ready to take on the burden of having to deal with the child like me at her home, and allow me to go somewhere where there were correct resources. Like, you know, how I look at it, she finally admitted that she wasn't ready for that. And I know it took a lot out of her to be able to say, yeah, I can't raise my child. Like, you know, for a long time I was upset at her because I wasn't able to have an out-of-body experience. And I'm like, oh, she gave up her child, but what about being a parent and having to say, I can't raise my child? Like, that's a burden too. That's a lot to have to admit as a parent too. Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
But throughout the years, you know, being in foster care, the one thing they would always say is like, oh, you're smart. Like, you're smart. You're gonna go somewhere. And I've always noticed I was a leader, and I've always noticed like people follow me. So for a while, I didn't use it for the best of my things. Like, when I would be locked up, we had these things called BIPs, behavior improvement plans, and they would always put me on a BIP of non-communication because they didn't want me talking to the other residents, because they told me I incited riots. Because when I speak with passion, and most of the time I study what I'm speaking, so I'm going to give you facts too. And you know, I started learning to use that to the best of my ability, and I got into cooking because me being locked up, I got my food handlers. That was the one thing that, like, got my GED, got my food handlers, and those became great things because I ended up getting a job in an Indian and Pakistani restaurant with no experience, simply because I had my food handlers. But I also knew the power of, like, you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know sometimes. So I watched and I studied, and that was like my foot in the door in the culinary industry. I was like 17 when that happened, and I've just, every kitchen since then, I'm watching, I'm learning, I'm taking heed of everything that's going on, just to be able to, you know, sharpen my skills. And eventually it led me to being able to I got my executive chef position at the age of 26.
Wow.
Yeah, no culinary school graduate. Like, I didn't go to culinary school. I didn't have the educational background that most people had. And if you've been in the culinary industry, or you know anyone that's been in the culinary industry, you ask them, every male, most kitchens, the chefs are men. It's not a women's industry. Women, like, you think of a house and you see women cooking. Nah, not the culinary industry. Culinary industry is ran by men, and it is different. Bringing a young black girl in the industry with no school background, you gotta learn to stand your ground. You gotta learn to not let people walk all over you. But it's a whole different lesson, because I learned those lessons in the hood, to stand my ground, not let people walk all over me. But we dealt with it different. You disrespecting me in the hood, you know, we deal with you a different way, versus a chef yelling at you in the restaurant. Can't deal with him the same way. So it's like, all right, now I have to take these skills that I learned in the hood and make them transferable, because you still, like, this is your career now. And got me far. Like, I was the executive chef of a restaurant called The Park. It was right in like across the street from Chelsea Market. Great area. You had Google down in that area, STK, Momofuku, like some of the best restaurants, and that definitely was like amazing to me. Like looking even back at my life at that point, I'm like, I know I'm blessed. This is not a lot of opportunity a lot of people get. Like really appreciative of it. At that point, the restaurant had decided they were going to sell. They had been there for about 20 years, and the owners were just like done with it. And they did offer me another job at the Jane Hotel, but at that point I had just recently gotten married, and I was like, you know what, we're gonna move. So my wife was like, all right, let's go, let's move, and we moved to Vegas. And I cooked out there, but that was like my introduction into the into the cannabis industry, where now I'm still cooking, but now I'm seeing the cannabis industry collide with the with the culinary industry, and I'm just like, oh, this is amazing, you know.
What type of things do you cook with cannabis?
You name it, I infuse it. Like I have right now I have a hot sauce out on the market. I have infused seasoning, which is like my version of Laurie's, like it's a seasoning salt. I have a brown sugar, I have a white sugar. I'm working on a recipe for ice cream. My ideas is to make it where you can have it in the comfort of your home. Not everybody likes to be intoxicated outside. Some people are not comfortable at this point with being intoxicated in front of other people. So I want it to be like you can have it at the comfort of your home, because right now there's not many places you can go and just like grab something to go. And if you do, it's always going to be snacks. So I did like a pop-up shop, and I did this thing I call it the Geek Grilled Cheese, which was an infused grilled cheese sandwich. I did my Zaza ziti, little pans of big ziti, chicken wings, because I do have an infused flour also. So it's to be able to offer people the comfort of infused food in their home, where they feel the safest, especially for people who are new in the market, because eating cannabis is a lot different than just smoking it. I feel like the reaction, the body high is different than a head high.
So what is it, what do you plan to do in the future with your business? Like, what do you see yourself in your business?
I want to be the hemp lady, like the cannabis lady. Like my goal is to create a more sustainable planet. We have, it's bigger than just getting people to buy cannabis or eat cannabis. Like we have problems going on in the rainforest right now because they're chopping down trees. We have people with asthma, we have people with oxygen problems, and it can simply be solved by using the barks of hemp or bamboo instead of cutting down these trees. Leave the earth as it is. Or we have people with skin disease who can't wear certain materials. Cotton and bamboo is very reliable. And all of these things are there. They grow rapid. And if we actually tap into these resources, we'll realize we don't have to destroy the earth. So my goal is to like spread cannabis awareness, even if you don't want to be someone that smokes cannabis or someone that like uses it at all. Eats it at all. There's still other resources. There's companies out there that's building bricks from cannabis right now, from hemp, using the barks of the tree. You can build houses from it, and the houses are way more sustainable than a brick house. The gentleman that runs Ford, a few years back, he built a car out of hemp. And he says it's 10 times stronger than any car that they built. So like the plant is sustainable. I have hemp sheets in the house, and they're like 5,000 thread counts. Like, you know how soft those sheets are? Like, you know, so it's like we've done a lot of harm to the earth, just like we've done a lot of harm to our bodies. And with me getting more connected to my body, realizing that we come from the earth. So in order to take care of my body, I have to take care of the earth too. So I'm trying to like...
You just helped me to raise a question. Like, what can a person that wants to be in this industry, like, what can they expect to make selling cannabis?
It all depends, because there's a lot of money in this industry right now. Like I remember the first time I made like $600 before like $1,200. So when I first started off, I had like these $15 apes. Depending on what neighborhood you go to, but anywhere you go to, a $15 ape is a discount. But depending on what neighborhood you go to, an ape can be anywhere from like $30 to $70. So, but I know the prices that weed, like cannabis, actually cost. So I'm like, I'm not trying to beat everybody in the head. I want people to, have the product there so that it doesn't become something that's like where they can like monopolize the market. So I started just selling $15 apes, and because I'm the only person that has apes for that cheap, of course I caught all the sales. So like when everybody first found out, I remember my first morning, must have got up about 8 o'clock that morning, and by 12 o'clock I had made $600 already. And I'm like, whoa. For me, after being a chef and standing 10 hours in the kitchen, and that's almost $600. That's almost a week's pay, like a little less than a week. I'm like, but then with certain things you got to remember to pay your taxes. So you can't just like, oh, this $600 isn't just for me, and buy other products. But it's a multi-million-dollar industry. It all depends on like where you decide to get into it, because it's not just actually being a retailer. There's also farming. There's also fertilizer. There's also the companies that have to work, the production companies that need to break down the product. Not to mention, after all of that, there's the companies that have to destroy no good product. Because like if there's something that goes bad with the soil, or maybe a plant starts to grow mold, that has to be destroyed. So there's so many different things that you can tap into with this industry. It's just that it's a new industry, so people are a little scared of it, and then because it's been a taboo for so long, people are nervous about it. Like one of the things me and my boys were just out looking at, we were looking at trucks. I'm like, yo, trucking companies, there's nobody's willing to like, this stuff is becoming legal in every state, and most of these farms are in California. How are they going to get their product to them? But there's not a lot of trucking companies that's willing to take that load, because it's federally illegal and the highways are federal. So now once I get on the highway, I could possibly be breaking law, but it takes that one person to stand up for themselves and say, listen, I'm going to stand my ground. I know I might catch some webs for this. I know I might get some backlash, but I have to pave the way. So I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm willing to take a risk with a little bit of everything. I'm going to pave the way.
And do you have a website that people can contact you on?
I do have my Instagram, where a lot of people place their orders. It is highly edible _420. I have a lot of people place their orders through there. A lot of people have my number where they place their orders through there. I'll drop menus every week sometimes where well, not every week, but a lot of weeks I'll drop menus where people order from there, and we'll go do deliveries. So sometimes it just depends on how much I have on my plate. And before I was working, but like even right now, I feel like a few months ago I felt like I was making enough money from this industry, where I left being a chef at the airport, making $75,000 a year, steady check every year, to just work my own business. And it was a lot for me, because I was used to this check every week, and I didn't know what the cannabis industry had in store for me. But I'm like, you gotta bet on yourself one of these days. And it's been amazing, and the money isn't as steady as I want it to be, but I see the business moving up, and I see like people actually taking heed. And like even 2 weeks ago, I sat down, it was maybe like 5 dudes, and they're like, hey, you want to teach us a class? And I simply was just teaching them a class on how to go file for your license in New Jersey, because it's $100 to start the license process in New Jersey. And a lot of people don't know that, because when you hear cannabis, you think, oh my gosh, I have to have billions of dollars. But you don't. Like, you got to start somewhere. It's $100 to start that license process. And then from there, people hear you have to have $1 million insurance policy. But people don't realize $1 million insurance policy really only costs you about $30 a month if you go to the correct insurance company. But you hear $1 million, and these numbers seem so big that it seems impossible. But when you realize, like, nothing is too great, like, you can do anything you put your mind to. Not to mention, like, I would hear a lot of guys say, "Oh, I can't get the cannabis license, I'm a felon." You are not priority. So, like, really exposing to them what is available. I mean, guys were like, "I'm priority?" Like, yeah, you're a minority. New Jersey, like, really, I think were cautious about the people that criminalizing cannabis affected. So they were really aware of that, and they made it where those people that cannabis affected the most became priority to get their license first.
Wow.
So, like, if you had ever been arrested for cannabis before, you're not priority for the license. Whereas, you know, most licenses, you can't even get a license anymore if you are minority woman. You're priority, minority male. You live in these low-income neighborhoods that the war on drugs affected the most. You are priority. They blocked out big businesses from just coming in and taking, because they know if it was all about money, all the big businesses would have just came in and swooped up everything available in New Jersey, and that's not what it was about. It's about really righting their wrongs. At least I feel in New Jersey, and I appreciate the lawmakers that stepped in and did that, because I genuinely think they took that in consideration. Like, there's a lot of families that was destroyed off of people going to jail for this. Like, fathers were taken away from their kids. You can't get those years back, you know? Yes.
So let me ask you this: like, if someone orders from you, how do you deliver the product?
So we have a delivery service where you, if you order my delivery service, I come, pick it up, and it'll be delivered directly to your door. And that, like, people be surprised. I'm like,
you have a delivery service?
Yeah.
Oh, someone. All right. What if they lived in a different state, like Ohio? How do you deliver that product to them?
So that's a little more. Like, I try not to. I look at the laws in every state. So if it's illegal in your state, I'm not willing to send anything to you, because you got to remember, the mail is still federal. But if it is legal in your state, I will send you mail. I will send it in the mail, and that is because of the fact that, like I said, you know, some situations I know I'm gonna have to be a martyr. I'm gonna be the person that's gonna take those lashes for it. But it's about fighting the system and fighting the control for me. And it's like, if it's legal in this state and it's legal from where I'm sending it, the feds need to get in line. Not to mention, you can buy weed from the feds. So,
Right.
so it's like, you guys sell weed. You use it in drugs. The FDA has approved all these drugs. You would only arrest me because I'm your competition, which still then means a good thing to me, because now you notice me. And if the feds notice you, you're doing a good job.
Well, for that, you know.
Yeah, at least for that. For that,
For
that
that.
in specific. I am talking about that in specific. I'm not talking about anything else. Let me make that clear.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't want everybody to think, oh, the feds notice me. No.
No, not at all. So what would you tell your younger self today?
That's a great question. You great. As simple as that. You are who you believe you are. Like, believe who you are. Because a long time, like, I went by the name of Nate the God for a long time. Wow, that's sad. I went by the name Nate the God for a long time, and that's always been my persona. Like, you know, a lot of people used to be like, she's cocky, she's arrogant, she don't talk to people. But it was just because I thought very proud. Like, in my head, I thought really proudly of myself. But when I went out in public, it's just like, you know, a lion could see if you're a sheep in lion's clothes. It's not what I believed in my heart, because I fought with a lot of insecurities that I wasn't willing to, like, put on the table. Like, I fought with the insecurities of my mom having a drug addiction. I fought with the insecurities of not being able to grow all the things that I have. I fought with the insecurities of being called a bum, or women walking away from me, or not having the love that I thought I deserved. I fought with insecurities about all of that. And because I tried to hide it, I suffered by my own. I suffered by myself. And it wasn't until I realized, like, you don't have to suffer alone. There's 100 people in the world going through the same thing you're going. Hundreds of thousands of people that's going through the same thing you're going. A whole lot of people with drug addicted parents. A whole lot of people that can't afford the clothes that they want. I remember there was a point where I had been living in this house. My lights was off. Ain't have no heat. But I was at every party every weekend. Fly. Nobody knew. And I felt good in the party. But the moment I was on my way home, I was eating up inside because, I had my insecurities about that. And I just think I have a support system now that I know had I told any one of those people, they would have helped me. But I had too much pride to admit that I was going through something because I'm Nate the God. And then, I lost a lot of people and I had to deal with all those insecurities, and I got more comfortable in my skin, and there was a lot of people that around that, I started learning, I'm not the only one going through this. And it built up a great support system. Then I'm like, ain't no reason to be ashamed of that. And instead of just saying I was Nate the God, I started walking like I was Nate the God. I started walking with my head held high. I started what I said I was actually matched who I was, because I wasn't walking fearful. I think I had said to you before, I started realizing we're not too different than the gods. Growing up, I had after the church, I felt like the church caused me like an outcast. I kind of like nitpicked with everything in the Bible for a while. So, like from the first story, when God gave Adam and Eve the choice, and they chose the tree of knowledge, and he cast them out the garden, the first thing I said, well, why God throw a bitch fit? Excuse me, like God, why God threw a temper tantrum? What was his problem with them choosing knowledge? Like, why he so mad? And then I realized, wow, God threw a temper tantrum too. Well, he was upset too. We feel anger. God feel anger. And studying like the book, like the Bible, it's like, they talk about the war in heaven and Revelations. I'm like, hold on, we war on earth. And I started comparing all of these things that I would learn in the Bible. I'm like, when they say we were made in the images of gods, they meant that. We feel the same way they feel. We act the same way they act. We do the same things they do. So, and that was even more confirmation. You're not going through this alone. Even the gods go through this. Like, you're not too good. Stop hiding. So I stopped hiding everything. And for a while, some people be like, you just don't care what you say. You just say anything out your mouth. Yeah. Because I'm not hiding. I'm not scared of who I am. I live in my truths. I walk in my truths every day. I take, you can't make fun of me about anything, because there's nothing to make fun of me about, because I'm not scared of any of that. This is who I am. This is who made me into who I am today. Even with me, like, I used to, I remember when I first started really getting all the clothing that I had, and then there were people that I know now were just hating. They'd be like, you got all these clothes, but you don't got a car. I'm like, okay, and I used to beat myself, people will go broke with all these clothes. But then I started learning, the people that attracted me because of how I look. And yeah, maybe that's not to someone else, but to some people, they don't know how to get past their first vision. So, they have to judge you off of what you see, and that's gotten me through a lot of doors. So don't beat yourself up about that neither. In your time, in due time, you will get the car that you need, you'll get the house you need. But it's nothing to be ashamed of, because that's your walk in life. Stop measuring your success on somebody else's scale, because it ain't calibrated the same.
Right, absolutely. What would you tell someone that is younger than you are, a young adult? What would you tell them, trying to become an entrepreneur? What advice would you give them?
Be patient. Be patient. The thoughts that you have in your head, it can be that. I'm not going to say you can't start a business and then blow up overnight. I'm not going to say, it can't be a fairy tale. It possibly can. It can. but be patient, because even if it isn't that way, that doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Also be open, because everybody's not trying to hurt you. Everybody's not trying to hate. But, you know, there's other people that may see things that you may not see. Be cautious, but be acceptant to help, because there's some people, like I still believe in the good in humanity. And I kid you not, still to this day, people call me dumb for that. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm never going to stop believing in the good in humanity. There's always a good person out there. There's always a genuine person out there. There's always someone that means what they say. And you just can't assume that everybody's out there to hurt you, because they're not. And even if they are, learn that everything has a purpose. Everything.
Absolutely. So we're gonna end the interview here.
Okay.
But before we go, is there something that you would like to add? Like, I know you told us, you know, where we can buy, you know, in the cannabis, but can you be more specific? If you didn't already, if you did, it's fine.
Like I said, you can definitely check me out on Instagram. You can go to my Instagram, highlyedibles _420. You can go to my regular Instagram, which is Nate the God. My Facebook is Infinity Algorithm. I accept orders through all platforms, because I understand that, like, the world we're moving into, some people may be on one platform, not the other, and I'm not the best on social media, so sometimes I might see a message on this platform and not another one. But yeah, I just want everybody to keep the hope in themselves. Don't give up on yourself. Like, don't ever give up on yourself. Like, as long as you still breathing, there's a chance.
That was a great interview. I hope you guys learned a lot. Again, you know, if you're wanting to order, you can always contact her. Thank you again. Let's talk about it with Shatara, guys. Have a wonderful night. Goodbye.